Welcome to Property Mama Adventures in Real Estate, episode 6. I share all the adventures and shenanigans that I have experienced across my 28 years buying and selling real estate. For those of us that have not met yet, my name is Wendy Chamberlain and I am a buyer's advocate, buyer's agent, and selling advocate here in Melbourne, Australia. There certainly are many shenanigans that go on, which has been evidenced by recently the underquoting that has reared its head again. So I am going to talk about underquoting today on our Property Mama episode. But let's start with an update on the purchase of the property with the tenant that refused to leave. So those of you who tuned into our last episode would know that we were at the stage where we had managed to get the tenant out. Woo! So the next steps were to do a final inspection and then we would proceed to settlement. So we organised for the final inspection to be at 9 a.m. on the Thursday morning, where the expectation is at a final inspection is that everything is cleared out of the house. The rule of thumb is that if you need a screwdriver to remove it, then it stays. Everything else has to go. So we turned it up at the property for the final inspection on Thursday morning, and there was rubbish everywhere. They had left so much stuff. They literally had just dumped everything out in the backyard. And in the house itself, there was at least 3 or 4 mattresses, plus a bed base. So every single bedroom had something in it. And in the yard, they had just dumped everything. There was a trailer load of concrete and clothes and disused furniture and electrical, even food. There was an egg carton full of, there were 6 eggs in it. They were perfectly not even broken. Food, it was just a schmozzle, absolute schmozzle. So we said we are not going to settle. We refused to settle. So they had been trying to get us to settle earlier, the next day being the Friday. We had moved settlement 3 weeks already. So settlement was due to happen on Monday. We were doing the final inspection on the Thursday prior. They had asked if we could settle on the Friday, and we said subject to us inspecting the property and everything being fine, we would be happy to settle. We went along, obviously things weren't fine. The agent that met us on site said that they had expected people to come and clean the property. They were saying they were going to have people there between 3 and 4 that afternoon, and so would we be able to come back on the Friday and do another inspection for settlement on the Friday? Well, we couldn't. We couldn't because my clients had commitments for work. They couldn't get the time off work. And the other thing that we found is not only did they take their stuff out of the house, with the exception of the mattresses, they took the doorknobs, the door handles off the door. Now, under the contract of sale, fixtures and fittings, which a doorknob is, it's a fitting on the door. You use it to open the door. They'd taken it. They had literally taken it off the door, and there were two holes in the door where the lock and the door handle were just removed, totally removed. So we had a door that was swinging, but there was holes in it and there was no door furniture. So we were on the phone, well, I was on the phone to the real estate agent, and our solicitor was calling us because after we went to the property and did the final inspection, I rang the solicitor, said, we're not settling. We are not settling. The property is not clean, because it's going to cost thousands of dollars to move or remove all this rubbish. So we said, no, we're not going to do it. And so the solicitors, so what happens is once a property is sold, so you deal with the real estate agent to purchase the property, and then the solicitors get involved, and the real estate agent does not get involved anymore. They were involved insofar as having to exit the tenant and get the tenant out of the property. But in relation to when settlement's going to go ahead, doing final inspections, making sure everything's fine, that's handled by the solicitors or by the conveyancers. Next thing, our solicitor is sending me emails where the agent has stepped in, and the agent is having a go at me and my client on email. They weren't including me in the email, but they were having a go at me about the fact that we wanted the door handles, which are part of the contract, to be attached to the doors. Colour me fussy, hey. So our solicitor was emailing these through to us. So I was reading it, and she was doing an amazing job. She was going back to the real estate agent saying, "Don't you dare put any blame on our client in relation to you and your tenant and having to get the tenant out and the absolute mess that they've left behind. That is the responsibility of the real estate agent and the vendor, because when we signed the contract, we signed it with vacant possession, which means it's vacant and all their rubbish has been removed, and that we're taking ownership of a property that is clean and tidy and doesn't have all their rubbish everywhere," which it did. So I rang the real estate agent, and he lost it. He went off his nut at me. He was swearing at me about how that in the emails saying that we were milking the vendor, and he went off his nut. And I just think, you need to calm down. You need to calm down. I'm not the enemy here. I'm not the problem here. You deal with your tenant that's left all this mess. Don't yell at me. It's not. Anyway, someone must have walked into the room and he said, "I got to go. I'll call you back." And he hung up. Anyway, a little while later, he rang me back, and he was calmer. I actually think someone had a word to him who overheard the conversation where he was yelling at me on the phone. And I said, "Why are you throwing me under the bus? I'm not the problem here. It's the tenant." And he's like, it kept going on a bit. And I said, "You should not be involved with the emails for the solicitors. That's for the solicitors to sort out." Then he had a go at the conveyancer, which was his conveyancer that his client was using, and saying, well, they were hopeless and that's why he'd stepped in. And I said, it doesn't matter. You need to step aside. You need to let the solicitors handle it. You can't get involved. And he said, okay. And then he did send an email apologising to the solicitor, to our solicitor, saying he didn't mean to be rude or upset anyone in any way. I didn't get an apology. I didn't get an email apologising to me. But anyway, we organised, got a photo came in on Thursday afternoon of the backyard where they had moved all this rubbish out. And so my clients and I arranged with the agent to go back on Saturday afternoon, which we did, and things were cleared out. Still no door handle on the door, but our client said, look, we'll just let that one go. We'll just replace the door handle. And so I am very pleased to share that the property has now settled and our client has taken ownership of the property. Oh, I forgot to say, when we were there on the Thursday doing the final inspection, the tenant came back looking for her cat. Now, whether there was a cat, I don't know, but she came back saying, calling for the cat by the cat's name, going, have you seen a cat? Have you seen it? We hadn't seen a cat. Anyway, very odd. And when I drove off, the tenant was sitting in the driveway of the property that she no longer lived in. So I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, happily, we have now settled that property, and our clients immediately changed the locks on the front door and the back door because they now own the property, and they will start to fix it up and renovate it and make it their own home. I forgot to say, the tenant also cut down an apple tree in the backyard. There's nothing wrong with the apple tree. The apple tree they threw it out on the nature strip. I don't know. Anyway, our client now has settled on the property. So, woohoo, exciting times for them. That's their first property, first home. That was quite the adventure. I can tell you, in all of my time in real estate, we've never had to do 2 final inspections. Usually one's enough, but we did not trust photos. We wanted to go back in person, which is what we did. So that is all done and dusted. So let's swing back to the conversation on underquoting. I had a call this week from the TV show, The Project, who wanted some commentary, someone to go on TV to talk about underquoting. Because here in Victoria, the body that is supposed to look at regulating underquoting have come out. They've got a task force, and they came out to say that they had fined a real estate agent who was proven to be underquoting. So they fined them. I think they fined them $38,000, which honestly that's not much for the benefit of what they get out of it anyway. That's what I wanted to share today. So people don't understand why agents underquote. They go, why do they do it? Because it's part of the game that they play. That's a method to their madness. So here in Victoria, we have an organisation, a government body called Consumer Affairs. They're the ones to whom you report any incidences, any times you see agents underquoting. And I've done that and nothing happens. I've done that. I have seen agents underquote. I've called them up. I've pulled them up. I've called them out on it. They don't seem to care. I've taken it to Consumer Affairs, and you know what they say? Have you spoken to the real estate agent? So you talk to the real estate agent and they don't care. So the rules here in Victoria certainly are, we have what's called a statement of information or a guide price, and it's a range. And the reserve of the vendor is supposed to be within that range. And I can tell you it's not, because when it's not, that's what underquoting is. And the rules are, where an offer comes in writing, and an email is considered writing, it doesn't have to be on a signed contract, that is considered to be an offer. And if the vendor knocks that offer back, that must form the bottom of the guide price, which means they have to lift their guide price. Most agents don't do it, and that's underquoting. And where I call agents on it, they worm their way around it. They say things. I even had an agent a few years ago threaten me. So we had made an offer on a property which was inside of the guide price. It wasn't the top of the guide price. It was inside the guide price. It wasn't the bottom. It was around about the middle. And they knocked it back. So it was going to auction. We made an offer. They knocked it back, which is the vendor's prerogative. However, the law states that the guide price then must be moved, and the bottom of the guide price must be the figure that the offer that came in and it was knocked back. They didn't do it. I rang the agent and I said, you need to lift your guide price. And the agent said, so here in Melbourne, we buy all over Melbourne. This particular property was in the north of Melbourne. And the agent said to me, we know you buy lots of property in the north. We don't want you to tank our campaign. So we wouldn't like to make it hard for you to buy in the north. I went, oh, okay, right. So, bit of a threat there, wasn't it? I said, okay, fine. Just, let's play nicely. I'm thinking to myself, I've not forgotten. That was 5-6 years ago. I've not forgotten about that. So basically, I threatened that if I didn't back off, they're pushing them to lift their guide price, which is the law, that they would make it hard for me as a buyer's agent, buyer's advocate in Melbourne, to buy properties in their area. So I went, okay, we're going to be like that. So there you go. That kind of stuff happens. I have also, and I've done what Consumer Affairs says. I speak to the directors of the real estate agents, and in one particular instance, the guide price, I think, was 1.2 to 1.3, 1.2 million to 1.3 million. We made an offer before the auction, about 2 weeks before the auction, on a contract fully signed. We made an offer of 1.3 million, which was the top of the guide price. The vendor, it was presented to the vendor by the agent. Now, we were dealing with one of the selling agents. The vendor was a client of the director and was having one of their sales agents deal with the campaign. Okay, I'm telling you that for a reason. So we made an offer of 1.3. It got knocked back. I thought, okay, right. So they should then lift the bottom of the guide price to be 1.3. So they had it on at 1.2 to 1.3. We offered 1.3, knocked back. The guide price should be moved. 2 weeks out from the auction, they did nothing. I asked the agent I was speaking with, and she said, oh, well, she'd speak to the director. Nothing happened. So the auction was on the Saturday. This was the Friday, the day before the auction. I was talking to the director about raising the guide price. And I said, look, we've made an offer of 1.3. You haven't lifted your guide price. And he started acting like he was my best friend and, all friendly, and saying, well, it wasn't really an offer, was it? wasn't an offer. I said, yeah, it was. It was on a contract, it was signed, and it was presented by your agent to the vendor. Oh, well, I didn't see that. That didn't come in. Well, I don't remember that. Are you sure you put an offer in writing? Do you think I'm sure I put an offer in writing? So it's dancing around saying, oh, well, it's his client and he didn't see the offer because it came in from, well, did it come in? I didn't see it. I'm thinking, really, mate? Seriously? So by this point, I think it was lunchtime on the Friday, so the auction was the next day. And I said, look, you're going to have to lift your guide price because you haven't lifted your guide price. And he's like, it's still trying to dodge and weave and going, oh, look, well, it's the day before the auction. It's a bit late. It's a bit late, isn't it? It wouldn't really matter if we didn't do it, would it? It's a bit late. I said, no, you need to lift your guide price. And so at 5:30 on the Friday afternoon, they changed online from having a price to contact agent. They updated their statement of information, which was loaded up in the back. So unless you loaded it and looked at it, opened it up, and a lot of buyers don't know that there's a statement of information which outlines comparable sales, which is where they had changed it very last minute, as late as they could the day before. That's what they did. And so the next morning when I showed up to the auction, the agent was there. He was actually the auctioneer. He was there, and I said, so did any of your buyers say anything about changing the guide price? He said, oh, a few people made a comment about it. So people did see it, although they did try to bury it and they left it till the last minute. So as I said, they still had it advertised 1.2 to 1.3 until the day before the auction, and then I think they put it up to 1.3 to 1.330, 1.350, I can't remember now. But they did make 1.3 under much sufferance, the bottom of the guide price. And so the auction started and we were bidding, and there was about 4 people bidding in total from memory. Anyway, we ended up buying the property and we paid 1,366. So it sold for 66,000 over what we had offered before the auction, but it was under much sufferance that they changed their guide price. They did not want to do it. So they basically, for much of it, they just ignored the rules and just ran their campaign how they wanted to run their campaign. So this is what we're up against in this industry, that much as we can, so you talk to Consumer Affairs who are supposed to be doing something about it, they push you back to the agent, you talk to the agent and you get this kind of pushback from the agency, to the point of them just, lying about receiving offers. Like, I know you got an offer because I wrote it up and I sent it in and it was acknowledged and then it was knocked back, to bullying and threatening you. That's what happens. So you get to the point going, why do we bother? Why do we bother with reporting it? Because nobody does anything about it. Does anyone even really care about it? And what I say is, if Consumer Affairs really wanted to do anything about it, underquoting would have stopped by now. It's gone on for decades. So why do agents underquote? This is the very interesting thing. The way that I like to talk about it and describe it is that the actual selling of the property is a byproduct, if you like, of the campaign and the sales campaign of what they're running. Yes, they want to sell a property because that's how they earn their commission and that's how they get paid. So obviously they want to sell the properties. However, in the process of getting a property sold, they are partaking in lots of different little strategies and ways to market, to benefit themselves. The real estate agents are benefiting themselves by putting a property on the market underquoted, under what it actually is going to sell for. So one of the main reasons that they do it is a database building exercise. They deliberately underquote because they will have inquiries from buyers who cannot afford that property and who would otherwise not have made an inquiry, and they wouldn't have gathered their contact details. So when someone makes an inquiry, or if you go through a property that is advertised for sale, because They'll have open for inspection times online. You don't have to ring the agent before. You just show up, and then when you get to the door, they will ask for your contact details. They want your mobile number. They'll often want an email address to take your name down and so forth. So then they have you on their database. And so they can then start marketing to you. They know full well that there is a good percentage of people showing up at the door to inspect a property are not the buyer and won't be able to afford the property because it's going to sell for more than they've quoted it for sale. But when people are searching online on realestate.com.au and on Domain, which are the two main portals, they are searching by price bands. You're searching within your budget. You're looking for properties that are actually within your budget that you think you can buy. And when a property is underquoted and you don't know it's underquoted, you think you can buy that property. So you'll rock along to an open for inspection. The agent gathers your details, and you actually think at the time you might even have a shot of buying this property. You don't, and the agents know you don't, but they'll gather your details anyway because it builds their database. So why are they wanting to build their database? Well, they're sales agents. They make their money from selling properties, from the commissions. So they want as many people coming through the property as possible because they know that whilst you can't afford this particular home you're standing in, that you're oohing and ahhing over because you're falling in love with it, even though you don't yet know that you can't afford it, that they will take you across to another property. Oh, well, this one's outside of your budget, but we've got this other one over here. So they're enabling the ease for them to sell another property that is at a lower price point that may be within your budget as a buyer. So they've got you've got your details, they can market to you, they can show you other properties, so they are able to sell you other homes and get paid more commissions because they've sold another house as well as the one that you went to look at but you couldn't afford. They don't care about that because you can buy the other one that you can afford, and they've sold two properties. Make sense? So there also is going to be a percentage of people inspecting any house for sale that in order to buy another home, they have to sell the one they're living in, or they may have to sell an investment property, or they've got to do something with their circumstances to fund being able to buy the next property. They know that. They know that there is a percentage of people walking in the door at any open for inspection that have a house to sell. Have you ever shown up to an inspection and the agent says to you, do you have to sell in order to buy? You think they're just making conversation? They're not. They are trying to work out, do I put a tick against your name that I'm going to follow up? Because in order to buy, you have to sell. And guess what? Hey, look, I can help you sell. I'm a real estate agent. That's one of the reasons they do it. They get people coming through the homes that can't afford the homes because they've underquoted it, because they do know those people have houses to sell. So whilst they'll say, look, Shane, you missed out on this property, it went over your budget, I know you've got a home to sell, let's organise to get an appraisal and we'll have a look at your property and we'll be able to help you get it on the market, and then we can move you into another home. We'll have another home for you, we'll organise it. Please remember the real estate agents that are selling the properties are not working for you where you're the buyer. They're working for their vendor. It's their job to get the property sold for their vendor. So when you have a property to sell, they want to talk to you because you are their next vendor. That's what they're doing. That's part of what they're doing. Another reason is that a percentage of people coming through any open for inspection will need or may be looking to, if they've got an investment property, they may want to change rental managers. So one of the key indicators for real estate agency, part of their value is their rent roll. So the rent roll is the number of properties they have under management that they rent. So they have landlords or rental providers that are their clients, and that's how they make money from their rent roll. Because where you have your property professionally managed, which is something I do suggest that you do, because I think it voids your insurance if you don't get professional property management, that they want you, they're always, I mean, as with any business, they're looking for new clients. They're always looking for new clients. So when a property is put up for sale, of the people walking through, there's going to be people that may already own investment properties who may be looking for new rental managers is the first thing. Or if they're an investor and they're coming through and buying that particular property, they want that person to then rent back through them. It's very, very common for when an investor buys a property from a selling real estate agent that they just literally just hand it to that selling agency to manage it. Now, let me tell you, selling real estate and renting real estate, they're two different teams. They're two completely different skill sets. And so you should be doing your due diligence and interviewing your rental managers, it'll be a BDM, it'll be the business development manager. Interview them and ask them questions to ascertain, are they the best person to be managing your asset? You don't just blindly give it to the person who sold it to you. If through the interview process, their rental management team is the best team, fantastic, that's fine. But don't just hand your property to the agency that just sold it to you, because they are two different skill sets. They absolutely are. The different personalities between a salesperson and a rental manager, they're totally different. So do due diligence there. Make sure you ask the right questions of what you need to be ascertaining as to, are they the right person and agency to be managing your new property. So let's have a talk about the actual auction process and why underquoting plays a massive part when it comes to game day, the day of the auction. If you've ever been to an auction, if you looked around the crowd, and there's usually a crowd there depending on what the market's doing. I've been to auctions where there's 7 people, but sometimes you'll have crowds of 60, 70 people. If you've been to that property and you are a genuine buyer and you want to bid to buy that property and you look around the crowd, can you pick who else is going to bid? More to the point, can you pick, do you know the budgets of the other people that are standing there? You won't. Unless you overhear somebody saying what their budget is. When I go along to auctions with my clients, I have to say inside voice, because we're talking before the auction. We make sure that no one's overhearing our conversation, and some people are a little bit louder than others. So make sure that we have inside voices, but you do not know the budget of anyone else standing on the street that is going to bid at auction on that property. So why does the agent underquote? Because they know you don't know that, and so they want someone with a lower budget to get things underway, to be able to kick the auction off. Because the person that has the deepest pockets, that is going to be the eventual buyer, doesn't know the person starting off, or the person bidding lower doesn't have the budget that's going to buy the property. If you go to an auction, now auctions are extraordinarily stressful for a lot of people. I've said it before, I love auctions. Auctions are my office. So for me, that's a day at work. And I love it because I'm not emotional about it. We work out our strategy, I show up, we've got our budget, I bid for our clients. And I love it, absolutely love it. But people that are not in the industry, not a buyer's advocate like myself and my team, they don't have the confidence to bid at auction. They don't find it fun and something that they're doing all the time. And so they get very, very nervous and very stressed about the auction process. So you're standing there and someone else over there starts bidding. That's competition for you. You don't know what their budget is. You don't know when they're going to stop. They may outbid you. You don't know that. You've got no frame of reference whatsoever. All you're going off is the guide price provided by the real estate agent. And if you think within a guide price or even below a guide price that you're going to buy a property, the chances are that you won't. Where a market is a buyer's market, well, then there's other opportunities there. But as a general rule, the properties being underquoted is so that they have as many people there on the day of the auction to start the auction off and to be competing against each other. Which is why, if you've ever been to an open for inspection and you're talking to a real estate agent or in the follow-up afterwards, talking about the interest and that kind of thing, and even possibly talking in roundabout type of things about what the budget might be or what the property's going to sell for, Ever had an agent say to you, oh, you should be there on the day? I'd suggest you be there on the day. Better that you be there on the day. They know that you don't have the budget. Mostly they know that you don't have the budget to buy it. They want you there on the day so that you are shown as a bidder, and the person with more money will bid against you and you bid them up. So they're looking to bid you up. Remember I just said about the real estate agent that's selling the property is not your friend. They're not working for you. They're working for their seller. So their job, the auctioneer's job, is to get as much money out of the buyers as possible for the sale of the property. So by underquoting it, they have more people there on the day that potentially will bid. And when somebody starts bidding, another person that's possibly going to bid does not know what that person's budget is. So that is a major, major reason why they do underquoting. It's it's part of the game that they do so that they get people there to bid who otherwise would not have been able to afford it, to start things off, because you just never know. You never know who you're bidding against. You never know what kind of budgets they have, but they need you there to get things going. Because an auction of one person isn't an auction, really. It's not. I mean, I was going to say we've all been to auctions. Well, I've been to auctions where they're fizzled. There's only one person. So oftentimes once an auction starts, they'll call for bids, and they'll use their scripts that they've got. Doesn't matter where we start, it's where we finish that matters. And when nobody wants to get started, and often you'll get someone lowballing, if at all, but it's very, very common for auctions to start with no bids. So the agent will be, the auctioneer will have spent however long, 5 plus minutes talking all about the area and all about the house. And then say, let's get underway, blah, blah, blah. And there's just crickets. It's silent. And that's because most people don't want to start an auction. They don't want to start an auction because generally where you're starting it is where it's not going to finish. And often if you're looking at a guide price, the bottom of the guide price is rarely where the reserve is at the start of an auction. So it's where the reserve is what the price that a vendor or a seller is prepared to sell their property for. Depending on the type of market, what a market is doing, how many buyers there are, the level of interest, etc. When an auction gets underway, when people start to bid, until it hits the reserve, you're not on the market and the property's not going to be sold. So at that starting point where things are just getting started, a lot of people don't want to get started with an auction because you're highly unlikely to be buying the property. And so many, many people sit back and sit on their hands. And so that is why you'll often see agents, auctioneers, putting in a vendor bid. A vendor bid is a bid on behalf of the vendor. Obviously, the vendor's not buying back their own property. But what the agent is trying to do is get momentum with the auction, get other people to start bidding. But particularly if no one else ends up bidding, they're trying to get the price closer to what the reserve is. So when they end up reporting the auction, they can report it closer to where the reserve is. And that's part of the reason for a vendor bid. But it also, it starts getting momentum going with the buyers. So that's why they do it. So there you have it. That's why agents underquote. It very much relates to some of the strategies that the real estate agent themselves are looking to achieve alongside getting the property sold. They're obviously looking to get the property sold because that is how they earn their commission. But on the way to earning their commission, there's all these other strategies that they're looking to achieve. So I can guarantee you, I can tell you hand on heart that where a buyer comes through a property that has a property to sell, they're not going to give any of that commission to the person who's selling the house that they're selling right now. They'll take that all for themselves. So it's for them, for their future business. Same with the rent roll, that's for their future business. Same with taking a buyer across to another property, that's for their own business. So underquoting is serving a number of purposes for the real estate agent. And there you go. There's some of the reasons why agents underquote. Do I think underquoting will be stamped out? No, I don't. I don't think it will, because there are too many players in the industry. Real estate agents are just one, the government's another one, that are benefiting from underquoting happening. Who do you think makes money from stamp duty? The government does. They've got a task force at the moment. Those people are all have got jobs in the task force, the underquoting task force. What happens if the task force goes away because there's no more underquoting? So there's lots of different reasons why underquoting, it's never going to go away. And people can jump up and down about underquoting. They shouldn't be underquoting. Well, no, they should not be underquoting, but they do, and they get away with it. So what do? Learn to play the game. Real estate is a game. There's a certain way it's done. Learn how to play the game. This is why you speak to a buyer's advocate, buyer's agent, Chamberlain property advocates, because you know what? We know how to play the game. And I can tell you that if you're not appointing an advocate, your competition is. Someone else that you're competing with at auction has likely appointed an advocate. So why not get ahead of the game and have us by your side supporting you, because we know how to play the game. And why not avoid auctions altogether? At least 40% of the properties we buy for clients are not advertised. If you're only looking for properties on realestate.com.au and Domain, you're missing 40-50% of the market you're missing out on. It's through our real estate agent relationships that we have over many, many years that we can find the off-market opportunities for you. So off-market can be properties that were not going to be advertised. There's also pre-market opportunities as well. So these are properties that are getting prepared for the open market, and they will go on the market if they don't snag a buyer beforehand. And that's where we can step in. We represent you, and we know how to play the game. That's what we do as advocates for you. It's in the name. We're advocates for our buyers. So if you're in the market at the moment and you need a hand, whether it's bidding at auction, because we do that as a service, if you just need us to bid at auction for you because you're not confident, you've got other engagements, you're interstate, you're going to a wedding, whatever it might be on that Saturday, speak to us about representing you. We also have a negotiation service, so we can negotiate a purchase on your behalf for you. Or, of course, we offer our full service where we do everything from start to finish for you, which includes negotiating or bidding at auction for you. We present you with off-market opportunities, and we protect your interests through the entire process. So chamberlainadvocates.com.au, or reach out across our social platforms and we will be in touch with you. We would love to support you. And of course, we have our Get Started in Property.com.au program, which is my step-by-step, self-paced mentoring program. We have 38 modules. We present you 2 modules per month, and you follow the bouncing ball. So if you would like to educate yourself in what it takes to buy real estate, this is for you, accessible from your on the internet, from your computer, your tablet, your phone, however you like to digest your information, so you can do it from anywhere in the world. So if you would like some support and like to teach yourself, it's literally, I've downloaded 28 years of buying and selling real estate, and I've packaged it all up for you, even down to the scripts that you talk to agents. If you think, I couldn't do that, I wouldn't know what to say to a real estate agent when I rang them, we've given you scripts, step-by-step scripts that you can jump on the phone and just ask the questions. I mentioned earlier about the questions you need to be asking when looking to rent a property, have someone manage the rental. There are specific questions you need to be asking. So get started in property.com.au. You can find out more information there. And Chamberlain Property Advocates, chamberlainadvocates.com.au. We handle residential, commercial and industrial sales and purchases, particularly helping you buy. So if you're looking for a commercial property, industrial, or of course residential, we are here to support you. And I look forward to chatting to you again. Any questions or comments, please reach out. If you've got any topics you'd love me to cover in relation to real estate, just drop us a line and we'll cover those in a future episode of Property Mama Adventures in Real Estate. I'll be back again soon to share more shenanigans in the real estate industry. Bye for now.